Right now, somewhere in your city, there is a supermarket open 24 hours a day. It has roughly 40,000 different food items on its shelves. You can order dinner to your door in 20 minutes. You can eat a strawberry in December, a mango in January, food from 12 different countries before noon. And you still open the fridge, stare into it for 30 seconds, and think, there's nothing to eat. Here's the question nobody thinks to ask. What did humans eat for the 300,000 years before any of that existed? Not medieval humans, not ancient Romans, not even ancient Egyptians with their grain stores and their fish markets. We're going back further than that, back to before farming, before villages, before the very idea of planting a seed and waiting for it to grow. Back to when the only food you had was whatever you could find, catch, or kill, before sunrise, before something else found it first. The answer is going to change how you think about food, about health, about what your body was actually built to eat. And one part of it might genuinely bother you. Let's start with the obvious assumption. Most people, if you ask them, will say that ancient humans mostly ate meat, that they were hunters, big animals, mammoths, bison, wild horses. This is half true, and the half that's wrong is the more interesting part. Yes, they hunted, but here's what the archaeological record actually shows. For most of human prehistory, across most of the world, the majority of calories didn't come from hunting at all. They came from gathering roots, tubers, berries, nuts, seeds, leaves, bark, fungi, insects, eggs, honey, anything that didn't run away fast enough. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer communities, the closest living equivalent to our prehistoric ancestors, have found that in most groups, somewhere between 60 and 80% of calories come from plant sources. The hunt was important, meat was valuable, but it was never guaranteed. A mammoth hunt could fail, weather could change, animals could migrate. The berries, the roots, the tubers, those were the reliable ones. Those were what kept you alive on the days the hunt came back empty. And here's the part that stops most people cold. They weren't just eating whatever they could find. They knew exactly what they were doing. Archaeologists excavating prehistoric campsites have found evidence of what people were eating, and the variety is extraordinary. Not 5 things, not 10 things. In some sites, hundreds of different plant species consumed in a single season. Think about that for a moment. The average person today, in a country with 40,000 food items at the supermarket, regularly eats somewhere between 15 and 20 different foods. Our ancestors, with no stores, no farms, no agriculture of any kind, were eating a diet so diverse that modern nutritionists look at it and find it almost impossible to replicate today. They knew which roots were safe to eat raw, which ones needed to be cooked first, which berries were poisonous in large quantities but medicinal in small ones, which bark, when stripped and chewed, would ease a fever. This wasn't guesswork. This was knowledge, precise, detailed, life or death knowledge, built across hundreds of thousands of years of observation, passed down through every generation, memorized the way we memorize phone numbers and passwords. They didn't have textbooks, they had memory, and they needed every bit of it. But let's talk about the hunt, because even if meat wasn't the majority of calories, hunting was still one of the most extraordinary things prehistoric humans ever figured out. A woolly mammoth stands roughly 11 feet tall at the shoulder. It weighs up to 6 tons. Its tusks are 12 feet long and curved like blades. And a prehistoric human, armed with nothing but a sharpened stick, a stone point, and a group of other humans, decided that was dinner. Not just occasionally, systematically, strategically, with a level of planning and coordination that, when you examine the archaeological evidence, genuinely looks like organized military operations. At sites across Europe, North America, and Asia, archaeologists have found what are called mammoth kill sites. Places where ancient hunters drove entire herds off cliffs, or into bogs where the animals couldn't move, or into narrow valleys where escape was impossible. These weren't accidents. These were planned ambushes. And the people doing the planning had no written language, no maps, no way to communicate with groups more than a few miles away. What they had was an understanding of animal behavior so deep, so refined by generations of watching and learning, that they could predict where a herd would move days before it moved there. They weren't just surviving, they were thinking. But here's what really changes everything. In 1984, researchers began a long-term study of bones from prehistoric human populations, looking at height, bone density, signs of disease, signs of malnutrition. What they found was deeply inconvenient for everything we thought we knew. Before farming, prehistoric hunter-gatherers were, on average, taller than the people who came after them. Their bones were denser, their teeth showed far less decay, their skeletons showed fewer signs of disease and nutritional deficiency. The moment farming arrived, in every population, on every continent where archaeologists have studied this transition, human health got measurably worse. People got shorter, their bones got thinner, their teeth began to rot. Infectious diseases spread faster because people were now living in permanent settlements, crowded together for the first time in human history. Farming was, by almost every biological measure, a step backward for individual human health. So why did it happen? Because farming does one thing better than anything else. It produces more food, reliably, in less space, for more people. You don't farm to eat better, you farm to feed more mouths. Farming didn't make individual humans healthier, it made human civilization possible. It allowed populations to grow beyond what any wild landscape could support. It allowed cities to exist. It allowed the surplus that eventually created art, government, writing, and science. Everything we call civilization rests on agriculture. But the bodies that built that civilization were smaller, sicker, and shorter-lived than the ones that came before. And then there's honey. Of all the foods prehistoric humans ate, and they ate an extraordinary variety, the one that shows up most persistently in the archaeological record, across the most cultures, on the most continents, is honey. In the caves of Spain, there are rock paintings estimated to be 8,000 years old. They show a human figure climbing a cliff face, reaching into a hole in the rock, surrounded by bees. The oldest known depiction of humans interacting with food, found in Spain, dating to 8000 BC, is someone risking their life to steal honey from a wild beehive. No protective equipment, no smoke to calm the bees. Just a human, a cliff, and a desperate need for something sweet. This was not a rare behavior. It was universal. Every hunter-gatherer society ever studied, on every inhabited continent, has some tradition of seeking out wild honey. Because sugar, in a world with no farms, no fruit available in every season, no refined carbohydrates of any kind, was extraordinarily rare. And the human brain runs on glucose. When you found honey, you ate as much as you could carry. Your body wasn't broken when it told you to eat the whole thing. Your body was doing exactly what it was designed to do. We built the entire modern food industry around that one ancient instinct. We just forgot where it came from. So here's where we end up. For 300,000 years before the first seed was ever deliberately planted, human beings fed themselves by knowing things. Not by having things, by knowing things. They knew which plants were safe, which were dangerous, which roots contained the most calories per hour of digging, which animals moved in which direction at which time of year, which cliffs a herd would avoid, which river bends the fish returned to every spring. They carried an encyclopedia of the natural world entirely inside their own minds, and they passed it forward, generation after generation, without writing a single word of it down. The average prehistoric human knew more about food, where it came from, how it behaved, what it did to a body, than most of us will ever know about anything we eat. We outsource that knowledge to farms, then to supply chains, then to nutrition labels, calorie-counting apps, and food delivery algorithms. And now we stand in front of refrigerators full of food, and we can't find anything to eat. Your ancestors would find that genuinely baffling.